If you enjoyed this audiobook, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Chapter 1: From Hoarding to Harvesting Life. Part 1: The Hidden Cost of Dying with Money Left Over. Every unspent dollar in your bank account represents hours of your life you traded away, but never converted into living. Warren Buffett famously accumulated wealth until his 90s, while eating McDonald's hamburgers and living in the same modest house for decades. While his frugality became legendary, it raises an uncomfortable question. What experiences did those billions sitting in investment accounts never become? Most financial advisors teach you to save as if poverty is lurking around every corner. They show you charts of compound interest stretching into your 90s, assuming you will want the same lifestyle at 85 that you enjoyed at 45. But this math ignores a brutal reality. Your 30-year-old body can handle a month backpacking through Southeast Asia. Your 70-year-old body probably cannot. Consider John, a successful engineer who saved 40% of his income for 3 decades. He died at 68 with $2.3 million in retirement accounts, having postponed the European trip he always wanted and never taken his kids on the African safari they dreamed about. His widow inherited wealth she didn't need, while precious family memories were lost forever. The psychological comfort of watching account balances grow becomes addictive. Money provides a sense of security that feels more concrete than experiences. You can see your net worth on a statement. You cannot easily quantify the value of watching a sunrise from Machu Picchu or teaching your daughter to surf in Costa Rica. But here lies the trap. Every dollar you save beyond what you actually need represents life energy converted into numbers on a screen. You worked late nights, missed dinners, and sacrificed weekends to earn that money. If it never transforms into experiences, relationships, or growth, those sacrifices were for nothing. Financial prudence often masks fear, disguised as wisdom. The fear of running out of money feels more urgent than the fear of running out of time, even though time is the only currency you cannot replenish. When you choose to save another $1,000 instead of taking that photography class or visiting aging relatives, you are making a trade. The question is whether you are making it consciously or letting conventional wisdom decide for you. Part 2: Redefining Money as Life Energy. Your monthly salary represents approximately 160 hours of your life energy compressed into numbers on a bank statement. Think about your last paycheck differently. Each dollar contains fragments of your mornings, stress from deadlines, and pieces of your attention. When you worked late to finish that project or skipped lunch to attend another meeting, you converted precious hours into money. That conversion is irreversible. You cannot buy back the Tuesday evening you spent at the office or reclaim the weekend you sacrificed for overtime pay. Joe Dominguez, co-author of Your Money or Your Life, calculated that Americans typically trade 25 years of their working lives for money they never fully enjoy. His research showed that many people accumulate wealth but struggle to convert it back into meaningful experiences. This creates what he called money prisoners, people rich in savings but poor in lived experiences. Consider Sarah Chen, a software engineer who saved 70% of her income for 15 years. By age 45, she had accumulated over $800,000, but realized she had never traveled internationally, learned a musical instrument, or hosted dinner parties for friends. Her bank account was full, but her life felt empty. The energy she had stored as money never transformed back into the experiences that make life rich. Money functions as a storage device for human energy, similar to how a battery stores electrical power. But unlike batteries that lose charge over time, money can sit dormant indefinitely. This permanence tricks us into thinking we should hoard it rather than use it purposefully. The shift requires measuring success differently. Instead of asking, "How much did I save this month?" ask, "How well did I convert my life energy into experiences that matter?" Rich people often die having lived poor experiences because they never made this conversion consciously. Warren Buffett, despite being one of the world's wealthiest individuals, lives relatively simply and has pledged to give away 99% of his wealth. He understands that beyond a certain point, additional money provides diminishing returns on life satisfaction. His approach demonstrates that true wealth means having enough money to fund meaningful experiences, while ensuring excess energy benefits others rather than sitting idle. Your energy has an expiration date. Money does not. This fundamental mismatch explains why so many people reach their final years with substantial savings, but profound regrets about unlived experiences. The goal is not to spend recklessly, but to spend intentionally, converting your stored life energy into memories, growth, and joy before your capacity to enjoy them diminishes. Part 3. Shifting the core financial question. What if the most dangerous financial question isn't how do I avoid going broke, but rather, how do I avoid wasting my one life? Most financial advisors will teach you to ask whether you have enough money saved for retirement. They'll help you calculate withdrawal rates and emergency funds. But here's what they rarely discuss. What if you save so much that you miss the best years of your life? Warren Buffett, worth over $100 billion, admits he could have spent more freely in his younger decades when he had the energy to travel and explore. He recognized that his extreme frugality in early years, while building wealth, also cost him experiences he can never reclaim. The traditional financial question centers on scarcity and fear. Will I have enough? Drives people to work longer hours, take fewer vacations, and postpone meaningful purchases indefinitely. This mindset treats money as the ultimate goal rather than a tool. Consider the executive who saves aggressively for 30 years, accumulating millions, then discovers at retirement that his back problems prevent the hiking trips he always planned. His money survived, but his capacity for certain joys did not. A more balanced approach asks different questions entirely. Instead of, how much do I need to never worry, try, how much is enough to live fully at each stage of my life? This shift changes everything. It means evaluating whether working overtime for extra savings makes sense if it costs you dinner with friends or family vacations, while your children still want to spend time with you. Fear-based planning creates artificial constraints. You work extra years just to be safe, missing opportunities that require energy, health, or timing. Maybe you postpone the photography workshop because you're focused on maxing out retirement contributions. Maybe you skip the family reunion because plane tickets seem expensive. These decisions feel prudent in isolation, but they accumulate into a life pattern of deferral. Intentional planning acknowledges that security matters, but so does living. It means calculating not just financial risk, but life risk. What experiences become impossible if you wait? What relationships suffer from constant postponement? What dreams require your current energy and health? Your peak earning years often coincide with peak physical capacity. The question becomes, how much of that capacity should you preserve for experiences now versus convert to money for later? There's no universal answer, but there should be a conscious choice rather than defaulting to maximum accumulation. Part 4. Recognizing the trap of deferred living. The retirement fantasy sells itself as the ultimate reward. Work hard for decades, then enjoy unlimited freedom. Yet countless retirees discover their bodies can't handle the adventures they spent 40 years planning. The deferred living trap catches millions who assume their future selves will have the same energy, health, and enthusiasm they possess today. Consider Warren Buffett's longtime business partner Charlie Munger, who accumulated vast wealth but lived modestly well into his 90s. While admirable in many ways, his extreme frugality meant missing decades of experiences that money could have provided during his prime physical years. The irony? He had more than enough resources to enjoy both financial security and rich experiences throughout his life. Most people operate under unexamined scripts inherited from parents or society. Save first, live later sounds responsible, but it often translates to sacrifice now for a theoretical future that may never arrive as planned. These scripts rarely account for the reality that peak earning years frequently overlap with peak physical capacity. The health decline begins subtly. A 30-year-old can backpack through Southeast Asia, sleeping in hostels. A 65-year-old with the same financial resources might need comfortable hotels and shorter walking distances. The European cycling tour that seemed possible at 45 becomes daunting at 70. Each delayed experience carries invisible expiration dates. Corporate culture reinforces this deferral through promotion structures that demand increasing time commitment precisely when family relationships need attention. The promise of work-life balance gets perpetually pushed to the next career milestone. Partners grow distant. Children develop interests their parents know nothing about. Friendships fade from neglect. The question worth asking: what specific experiences are you postponing, and why? Often the reasons crumble under examination. That photography course you'll take when things slow down doesn't require a career pause. The family vacation you're deferring until the mortgage is paid might cost the same whether you take it now or in 5 years, but the children will be different people by then. Smart deferral happens when timing genuinely matters. Waiting to start a business until you have relevant experience makes sense. Delaying travel until political instability resolves shows wisdom. But most deferrals stem from vague anxiety rather than strategic thinking. Your future self deserves consideration, but not at the expense of your present self. The goal isn't reckless spending, but conscious allocation of life energy across all your decades. Recognizing that some experiences have natural seasons that won't wait for perfect financial conditions. Chapter 2: Memory Dividends and Experiential Investing. Part 1: Understanding Memory Dividends. The magic lies in how experiences keep giving back to you years after they happen. While that expensive watch sits in your drawer collecting dust, the memory of hiking Mount Kilimanjaro with your best friend continues paying emotional interest every single day. Think about it this way. When Warren Buffett talks about compound interest in investing, he means your money grows over time without you doing anything extra. Memory dividends work the same way, except instead of cash, you get stories, confidence, and deeper relationships that multiply in value as years pass. Consider Sarah, a marketing executive who spent $3,000 on a cooking class in Italy when she was 28. 20 years later, she still tells stories from that trip at dinner parties. Her Italian recipes became family traditions. The confidence she gained from traveling solo led to bigger career risks. That single experience created hundreds of moments of joy, pride, and connection that continue today. Compare this to her colleague Mark, who bought a $3,000 leather couch the same year. The couch looked nice for maybe 5 years before it started showing wear. Now it sits in his basement, forgotten and worthless. The key difference is time. Experiences get better with age, like fine wine. You remember the highlights and forget the discomfort. That camping trip where it rained becomes a funny story about the time you all huddled in a tiny tent playing cards. The business class upgrade transforms into proof that you treated yourself well during a difficult period. These emotional returns compound because they feed into new experiences. The confidence from completing a marathon makes you more likely to try rock climbing. Learning Spanish in Mexico helps you connect with coworkers later. Each experience builds on others, creating a web of memories and skills that enrich everything else you do. Material purchases work differently. They give you immediate satisfaction, then slowly lose their emotional impact. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. You get used to your new car, bigger house, or fancy gadgets. They become background noise in your life. But asking someone about their favorite travel memory, biggest challenge overcome, or most meaningful celebration still lights up their face decades later. These stories become part of who they are. They shape how others see them and how they see themselves. The math is simple. A 25-year-old who takes an adventurous trip has 60-plus years to enjoy those memory dividends. Someone who waits until 65 gets maybe 20 years of storytelling and reflection. The earlier you invest in experiences, the longer they compound emotional returns throughout your entire life. Part 2: Why Early Experiences Compound More. Think about your 25-year-old self having an epic adventure versus your 65-year-old self taking the same trip. The timing of experiences matters far more than most people realize. Your body at 25 can handle sleeping in hostels, hiking mountains, and staying up all night talking with strangers. At 65, you might prefer comfort over adventure, and your energy levels work differently. Consider Richard Branson, who started his entrepreneurial adventures in his 20s. Those early risks and wild experiences didn't just build his business empire. They created decades of stories, confidence, and relationships that shaped everything that followed. The thrill of launching Virgin Records at 22 gave him 50-plus years of drawing on that bold memory. Your social circles change dramatically over time, too. At 25, your friends are probably single, flexible, and ready for spontaneous adventures. By 65, they're dealing with health issues, family obligations, and different priorities. The backpacking trip through Southeast Asia hits different when you're doing it with college buddies versus trying to coordinate it around everyone's medical appointments. Physical capabilities peak early and decline gradually. The marathon you run at 30 becomes a source of pride for the rest of your life. Wait until 60, and you might be dealing with joint problems that make it impossible. Rock climbing, surfing, or learning extreme sports all favor younger bodies that heal faster and fear less. Warren Buffett famously said his biggest mistake was being too conservative early in his career. He should have taken bigger risks when he was young and had more time to recover. The same principle applies to experiences. The financial cost of that month-long European adventure hurts less at 25 when you have 40 years of earning power ahead of you. Your capacity for forming new neural pathways and absorbing different cultures also peaks in younger years. Learning a language, adapting to foreign customs, or developing new skills happens more easily when your brain is still highly plastic. The fluency you gain from living abroad at 23 enriches every subsequent conversation and opportunity. The compound effect works because early experiences become reference points for everything else. They build your identity, confidence, and worldview during your formative years. That adventure shapes who you become, not just what you remember. Smart investors know that time in the market beats timing the market. Smart experiencers know that experiences in youth beat experiencing in old age. The earlier you invest in meaningful adventures, the longer they compound into wisdom, stories, and personal growth. Part 3. Building an experience portfolio. Think of your experiences like stocks in a portfolio. Diversify wisely, and the returns last forever. Most people treat their experiences like impulse purchases at a grocery store checkout. They grab whatever catches their eye in the moment without any strategic thought. But what if you approached experiences the same way sophisticated investors approach their portfolios? What if you deliberately allocated your time and money across different types of experiences to maximize long-term returns? Consider Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn's founder, who calls himself an experience collector. He doesn't just invest in companies, he invests in conversations with fascinating people, travel to emerging markets, and learning adventures that might seem unrelated to his business. Each experience becomes part of his intellectual capital, paying dividends in unexpected ways for decades. Your experience portfolio should include different asset classes, just like a financial portfolio. Adventure experiences are your growth stocks. High-energy activities, like hiking the Inca Trail or learning to surf. These provide intense memories and confidence boosts that compound over time. Educational experiences are your bonds. Language classes, workshops, or seminars that build skills and knowledge. They offer steady, reliable returns in the form of expanded capabilities. Relationship experiences are perhaps your most valuable holdings. Dinner parties, weekend trips with friends, or simply regular coffee dates with mentors create social capital that appreciates over time. Warren Buffett famously spends millions on bridge games and charity auctions, not for the activity itself, but for the relationships they nurture. Then, there are ritual experiences, your dividend stocks. These are small, recurring investments, like weekly family dinners, annual camping trips, or monthly book club meetings. They might seem insignificant individually, but they create patterns of connection and meaning that pay steady emotional returns. The key is intentional allocation. Just as you wouldn't put all your money in tech stocks, you shouldn't put all your experience budget into expensive vacations. Balance the dramatic with the daily, the social with the solitary, the challenging with the restorative. Airbnb's founders understood this instinctively. Before starting their company, they deliberately collected experiences in design, hospitality, and travel. When the right opportunity emerged, their diverse experience portfolio gave them insights that competitors lacked. Their early investment in varied experiences became the foundation of a billion-dollar business. Start tracking your experience investments the same way you track financial ones. Are you overweighted in passive entertainment? Underinvested in learning opportunities? Missing out on relationship-building experiences? A well-balanced experience portfolio requires the same thoughtful curation as any other investment strategy. Part 4. Overcoming guilt around spending for experiences. The moment you swipe your card for that cooking class, your stomach might twist with an uncomfortable feeling of waste. Sarah Chen felt this exact sensation when she booked a week-long pottery workshop in Vermont. Despite having a healthy savings account and stable income as a software engineer, the $1,200 expense made her question her financial responsibility. She almost canceled 3 times before the trip. 6 months later, she still uses the bowls she made and tells coworkers about the meditative rhythm of the wheel. That brief week now influences how she approaches stress and creativity every single day. This guilt about experiential spending runs deeper than money anxiety. Most of us learned that good people save money and bad people spend it frivolously. Parents and teachers praised us for putting money in piggy banks, not for buying concert tickets or weekend adventures. These early messages create a mental category where experiences feel like luxury items we don't deserve. Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings struggled with similar feelings early in his career. He described feeling guilty about spending money on travel until he realized those experiences gave him insights that shaped his business vision. His early travels through diverse cultures informed his understanding of global entertainment preferences, directly contributing to Netflix's international expansion strategy. The guilt often intensifies when experiences leave no tangible proof of purchase. A new laptop sits on your desk for years, justifying its cost daily. A weekend trip to Nashville exists only in photos and memories. Your brain treats the laptop as real value while dismissing the trip as money that vanished. Professional financial planners now recognize this cognitive bias. Certified financial planner Michael Kitces notes that many clients need permission to spend on experiences even when their financial situations easily support such purchases. They've trained themselves to view any non-essential spending as reckless, regardless of their actual financial health. The solution requires reframing these purchases as memory investments with measurable returns. That pottery class wasn't just a week of fun. It was buying decades of pride, relaxation techniques, and conversation starters. Warren Buffett regularly speaks about his favorite investments being experiences and education that compound over time. Start thinking like a portfolio manager evaluating long-term returns. A $2,000 European trip at age 30 could generate 40 years of stories, confidence from solo travel, and cultural understanding that influences career decisions. The cost per year of enjoyment drops to $50 annually. Most people spend more than that on coffee subscriptions that provide far less lasting value. Chapter 3. Matching Money to the Right Moments. Part 1. The Decline of Health and Energy Over Time. Your body operates like a smartphone battery that slowly loses capacity over time. At 25, you charge to 100% and stay there all day. By 55, you might hit 80% on your best days. The difference becomes starkly apparent when you try to climb Mount Kilimanjaro or backpack through Southeast Asia. Warren Buffett, now in his 90s, possesses wealth beyond imagination, yet cannot physically experience many adventures that excited him decades earlier. His knees no longer support long hikes. His stamina cannot handle 18-hour travel days across multiple time zones. Despite having billions, certain doors have closed forever simply because his body changed. Consider the story of Maria Santos, a successful lawyer who postponed her dream African safari for 30 years while building her practice. When she finally booked the trip at 62, arthritis limited her walking to short distances. The Jeep rides aggravated her back problems. What should have been a transformative experience became a painful endurance test. Her younger colleagues, earning fraction of her income, had recently returned from similar adventures with glowing stories and incredible photos. Research from the Stanford Center on Longevity shows that physical strength peaks around age 30 and declines approximately 1% annually thereafter. Balance deteriorates faster after 50. Vision changes affect night driving and reading fine print. These changes are not failures of character or planning. They represent normal human aging that no amount of money can reverse. Risk tolerance shifts dramatically as responsibilities accumulate. The 20-something who sleeps in hostels and eats street food becomes the 40-something parent who chooses hotels with reliable plumbing and restaurants with health ratings. This evolution is natural, but it fundamentally alters which experiences remain accessible and enjoyable. Professional athletes understand this concept intuitively. Tennis players like Serena Williams and Roger Federer earned millions, but could not postpone their careers until retirement. Their bodies demanded peak performance during specific windows. Similarly, your personal adventures operate within biological constraints that money cannot extend indefinitely. The cruel mathematics of aging mean that experiences requiring physical vigor, mental sharpness, or high energy become exponentially more difficult with each passing decade. Recognizing this reality allows you to align your spending with your biological timeline rather than fighting against it. Part 2. The unequal value of the same experience at different ages. The same backpacking trip through Southeast Asia hits completely differently at 25 versus 55, and the reasons go far beyond your knees. Consider two versions of the same person taking identical month-long journeys through Thailand and Vietnam. At 25, Sarah shares cramped hostel rooms with strangers who become lifelong friends. She meets her future business partner over street food in Bangkok and discovers a passion for photography that shapes her entire career. The same Sarah at 55 stays in comfortable hotels, appreciates the temples more deeply, but misses the spontaneous connections that come from shared vulnerability and uncertainty. This difference reveals something economists call age-specific utility. Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings understood this when he took a 2-year break to teach high school math in his 20s, rather than waiting until retirement. That experience shaped his entire approach to education and leadership. Had he waited 40 years, teaching would have been just another hobby, not a formative chapter. Your 20s and 30s function like compound interest for experiences. The relationships you build, skills you develop, and perspectives you gain during these decades multiply throughout your entire life. When Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard, the opportunity cost wasn't just money. It was the unique timing of being young, energetic, and naive enough to believe he could change the world. This creates a painful irony. When you have the most energy and openness to new experiences, you typically have the least money. When you finally accumulate wealth, your capacity for transformation has diminished. A 65-year-old can certainly learn Spanish, but they'll never achieve the fluency that comes naturally to a 22-year-old living in Madrid for 6 months. The solution isn't waiting until you can afford the perfect version of an experience. Instead, ask yourself, what can this experience give me now that it cannot provide later? Sometimes the answer is friendship. Sometimes it's career direction. Sometimes it's simply the joy of discovering what your body and mind can handle. Smart timing means choosing experiences when they offer maximum life impact, not maximum comfort. The memories you create during periods of growth and change become part of your identity in ways that later experiences, however luxurious, simply cannot match. Part 3. Applying consumption smoothing to real life. Most people treat money like a video game, where the goal is accumulating the highest score by death. But here's what economists discovered when they studied how people actually spend money throughout their lives. We're terrible at spreading enjoyment evenly across our years. Think about your typical person. They work like crazy in their 20s and 30s, saving every penny for retirement. Then at 65, they suddenly have piles of money, but creaky joints and less energy to enjoy it. This pattern is so common that researchers have a name for it: front-loading work and back-loading fun. The smarter approach is called consumption smoothing. Instead of saving 20% of your income for 40 years and then trying to spend it all in your final 20, you spread your money more evenly across your entire life. This doesn't mean being reckless with money. It means being strategic about when you spend it. Consider Sarah, a marketing manager who realized at 32 that she'd been saving so aggressively that she hadn't taken a real vacation in 5 years. She was on track to retire with over $2 million, but had missed her sister's destination wedding because it seemed too expensive. Sarah adjusted her savings rate from 25% to 18% and used the difference to fund annual trips and experiences. She still reached her retirement goals, but she didn't sacrifice her 30s to do it. The key is recognizing that your future self might be wealthy but less capable. That hiking trip through Patagonia? It's probably worth doing at 40 when your knees work, even if it means having slightly less money at 70. The language immersion program in Tokyo? Better to go at 35 when you can handle the intensity than at 65 when jet lag takes a week to recover from. Practical consumption smoothing might mean working 4 days a week instead of 5, taking a sabbatical every 10 years, or spending more on travel and experiences in your 40s and 50s. The math is simple. If you die with money left over, you optimize for the wrong thing. The goal isn't having the most money at the end. The goal is having the right amount of money at each stage to live fully. Part 4. Using timelines to schedule key experiences. Think of your dream experiences as train departures with fixed schedules. Miss the window, and you miss the ride forever. The most successful experience planners treat their lives like project managers treat complex builds. They create actual timelines with real dates. Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings mapped out his sailing adventures in his 40s, knowing that managing young kids and a demanding company would make extended ocean trips nearly impossible. He scheduled 3 major sailing expeditions between ages 42 and 48, then deliberately scaled back as family responsibilities intensified. This approach works because it forces uncomfortable honesty about timing constraints. Want to backpack through Southeast Asia? Map it against your career trajectory and family plans. That month-long adventure becomes much clearer when you see it plotted against your 30s timeline versus your 50s options. The physical demands and social dynamics shift dramatically. Consider the practical mechanics. Write down 10 experiences you want before you die. Now assign each one an age window based on physical requirements, family circumstances, and career flexibility. That African safari works better at 55 than 75. Learning to surf makes more sense at 35 than 55. Taking your teenage kids to Europe hits differently than traveling with toddlers or empty nesting. The timeline reveals conflicts you cannot see otherwise. Maybe 3 major travel goals cluster around ages 45 to 50 while your kids hit college tuition years. The visual forces trade-offs and adjustments. Perhaps one trip moves earlier, another gets modified, or you adjust your saving strategy to fund both education and experiences. Real estate mogul Barbara Corcoran scheduled her most adventurous travels between selling her company and starting her television career. She created a 5-year window for experiences requiring extended time away, then shifted to shorter luxury trips that fit her media schedule. The key insight? Experiences need scheduling, just like any other major life investment. Vague someday thinking kills more dreams than lack of money. When you plot experiences against time, you spot the gaps where life gets too busy, too expensive, or too physically demanding. Then you can deliberately create space for what matters most. Most people plan their careers with precision, but leave experiences to chance. The timeline approach flips this pattern, treating memorable moments with the same strategic thinking you apply to retirement savings or career advancement. Chapter 4. A Many Deaths We Die. Part 1. Recognizing the End of Life Stages. You possess abilities right now that will vanish forever when this chapter of your life closes completely. Most people treat life transitions like job changes or address updates, administrative shifts that simply require new business cards. In reality, each major life phase represents the complete death of a former version of yourself. When Mark Cuban sold his first company at 29, he didn't just gain wealth. His identity as a scrappy entrepreneur living on ramen noodles died permanently. No amount of money could resurrect that hungry, desperate version of himself who had nothing to lose. Consider what happens when you transition from single to married. Your spontaneous Friday night adventures don't just pause, they die. The version of you who could pack a weekend bag and disappear to Prague without consulting anyone ceases to exist. When Netflix CEO Reed Hastings became a father, his ability to work 18-hour days without consequence ended abruptly. Money couldn't buy back those uninterrupted blocks of time or the mental clarity that comes with responsibility only to yourself. These deaths feel subtle because society celebrates the beginnings, graduations, weddings, promotions, births. We rarely acknowledge what ends. Warren Buffett openly admits that his 20s, spent reading investment reports in solitude, shaped his fortune. That monk-like focus died when family responsibilities grew. He couldn't recreate those conditions at 60, regardless of his billions. Each stage requires different physical capabilities, social contexts, and mental frameworks. The college student who can survive on 3 hours of sleep dies when you become a parent. The fearless 25-year-old who moves to foreign countries dies when mortgage payments demand stability. The person who could learn languages easily dies when your brain loses neuroplasticity. Think about your current stage honestly. What version of yourself are you living right now? What abilities do you possess that won't transfer to your next phase? Most people realize this too late, like trying to use expired coupons. They attempt to force old experiences into new life circumstances and wonder why nothing feels quite right. The cruelest part is how quietly these deaths occur. There's no funeral for your adventurous single self or memorial service for your carefree childless days. You simply wake up one morning and realize certain possibilities have silently expired while you were planning for someday. Smart experience planning requires acknowledging these deaths before they happen. What experiences make sense only for who you are right now? What adventures require your current energy levels, relationships, or freedom? These aren't postponable, they're perishable. Part 2. Identifying stage-specific opportunities. Your 30s arrived with the perfect salary for that backpacking trip through Southeast Asia. But now you need vacation approval, can't sleep in hostels, and secretly worry about street food. The opportunity didn't disappear. You changed into someone it no longer fits. Every life stage comes with its own exclusive access pass. Some experiences only make sense when you're broke but energetic. Others when you're wealthy but still healthy. And many when specific people are still in your life. Think of these as limited-time offers that expire not when the calendar says so, but when you transform into a different version of yourself. Consider the young professional who delays adventure travel until they have more money. By the time their salary supports luxury hotels, their body demands them. The spontaneous 3-month road trip becomes impossible when mortgages and responsibilities create invisible chains. Sarah Chen discovered this at 35, when she finally had enough saved for her dream European adventure. The money was there, but her willingness to sleep on trains and eat gas station sandwiches had vanished along with her tolerance for uncertainty. Physical opportunities follow biological clocks that don't negotiate. Rock climbing, marathon running, or learning extreme sports favor younger bodies with faster recovery times. Microsoft founder Bill Gates recognized this when he took time off in his 20s for reflection. knowing that intense focus and energy were temporary resources. Relational windows close just as definitively. Playing with your children while they still find you fascinating happens within a narrow band. Ask any parent of teenagers. Those giggly years when dad's jokes were hilarious don't return, no matter how much money you throw at family vacations. Career-specific opportunities also have expiration dates. The medical resident who delays travel will later have different responsibilities than the attending physician with hospital commitments. The startup founder's flexibility disappears once investors and employees depend on their daily presence. What experiences match your current situation perfectly? Maybe it's learning languages while your brain is still plastic, traveling light while you own nothing valuable, or having deep conversations with elderly relatives while they're still here. These aren't just postponed when you wait. They become impossible because the person who could fully experience them ceases to exist. Smart planning means identifying your current superpowers and designing experiences around them before they fade. Your future wealthy, responsible, cautious self will have different superpowers, but today's opportunities require today's version of you. Part 3. The Irreversibility of Missed Experiences. Your 85-year-old grandmother's stories about her childhood village will disappear when she does. The chance to experience parenthood with your current partner happens only within a specific fertility window. Professional opportunities to pioneer in emerging fields exist for mere years before industries mature and those doors close forever. These aren't dramatic examples. They're quiet realities that unfold daily around us. Warren Buffett acknowledged this when he said he couldn't recreate the investment opportunities of his youth, even with his vast current wealth. The newspaper delivery business that taught him fundamentals simply doesn't exist in today's digital landscape. He lived it once at the perfect time, or never at all. Consider the tech executives who became billionaires in their 20s. Many later attempted to recapture the startup experience by funding new ventures, but they discovered something troubling. The version of themselves that could sleep on office floors, survive on ramen noodles, and take massive financial risks had vanished. Their wealth insulated them from the hunger and desperation that fueled their original success. They could buy similar companies, but they couldn't buy back the experience of building one from nothing. Physical experiences follow the same pattern. Edmund Hillary climbed Everest at 33 when his body could handle the punishment. By his 60s, no amount of money could restore the lung capacity and muscle recovery that made his achievement possible. The mountain remained, but the window for him to experience it had closed permanently. Parents understand this acutely when they watch their children grow. The giggles during bedtime stories, the trust during piggyback rides, the innocent questions about the world, these happen once and disappear as quickly as baby teeth. Wealthy parents often try to recapture these moments through expensive family vacations, but their teenagers view these trips as obligations rather than adventures. The magic belonged to a specific age and mindset that money cannot resurrect. The pharmaceutical executive who postponed his passion for wildlife photography until retirement found that Parkinson's disease made steady hands impossible. The attorney who delayed learning piano until her children left home discovered that adult brains struggle with muscle memory in ways that young minds never do. Their resources remained abundant, but the biological prerequisites for their dreams had expired without notice. This irreversibility operates on a simple principle. Experiences require specific versions of yourself, and those versions have expiration dates printed in invisible ink. Part 4. Treating life opportunities as perishable inventory. Think of your life's possibilities as a grocery store where every meaningful experience comes with an expiration date stamped on the package. Just as a store manager monitors perishable items to prevent waste, you must track your life's opportunities before they quietly spoil on the shelf. When Whole Foods revolutionized grocery retail in the 1980s, they discovered something profound about managing perishables. Unlike canned goods that could sit indefinitely, fresh produce, dairy, and prepared foods demanded immediate attention. Each day items past their prime, The store lost not just money, but the chance to serve customers who wanted those specific products. Walter Robb, former co-CEO, often spoke about this urgent rhythm of perishable inventory management. Your dreams operate under identical principles. That African safari doesn't wait in storage like a savings account earning interest. It spoils when your knees can no longer handle rough terrain, or when your sense of adventure gets buried under family obligations. The cooking class in Tuscany expires when your taste buds dull with age, or when your spouse's health makes international travel impossible. Consider Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn's founder, who took a sabbatical at age 30 to travel through Europe and Asia. He understood that entrepreneurial opportunities would consume his 30s and 40s. Had he waited until after building LinkedIn, that specific type of discovery travel would have expired. The version of himself capable of hostels and uncertainty no longer existed once he became a public company CEO. A grocery manager never assumes spoiled milk can be restored to freshness. Yet we deceive ourselves that postponed experiences remain viable indefinitely. The energy for all-night conversations with friends, the flexibility for spontaneous adventures, the physical resilience for extreme sports, all perish silently while we accumulate more purchasing power. Smart inventory management requires rotation. Move older stock to the front, price it attractively, and prioritize its sale. Your life demands the same urgency. That graduate degree becomes stale when family responsibilities pile up. Learning a musical instrument spoils when muscle memory becomes harder to develop. Starting a business expires when risk tolerance diminishes with age. Restaurant chains like Chipotle built entire operational philosophies around this concept. Every ingredient gets used within strict time frames because freshness cannot be recovered. They accept small losses to maintain quality rather than serving stale food that ruins the entire customer experience. Ask yourself, which experiences are approaching their expiration dates? What opportunities are you treating like durable goods when they're actually dairy products with short shelf lives? Your calendar and health status reveal the freshness indicators. Some dreams are already showing signs of spoilage. Others still have time if you act quickly. But unlike grocery stores, life offers no restocking delivery trucks for missed experiences. Chapter 5: Finding Your Personal Enough. Part 1. Questioning Endless Accumulation. Most of us carry a financial treadmill in our heads that never stops running. Dave Chappelle walked away from a $50 million Comedy Central contract in 2005 because he realized the money machine was consuming his creativity and peace of mind. While most people thought he was crazy, Chappelle understood something profound. More money doesn't automatically mean a better life. The relentless pursuit of wealth becomes a habit that outlives its usefulness. Warren Buffett, worth over $100 billion, still lives in the same Omaha house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. While his frugality works for him, many wealthy people continue accumulating far beyond what enhances their actual experience. They become prisoners of their own success, working to grow numbers on spreadsheets rather than living. Consider the executive who delays retirement at 62 to reach an arbitrary $3 million instead of $2.5 million. Those extra 2 years of grinding through meetings and stress might net $500,000. But what experiences could that time have bought? A grandchild's early years, a spouse's healthy retirement years, or simply the energy to travel while legs still work well? The hedonic treadmill explains why each financial milestone feels less satisfying than expected. Lottery winners return to baseline happiness levels within months. Tech entrepreneurs who sell companies for tens of millions often feel empty afterward, realizing the chase was more exciting than the destination. The problem isn't reaching goals, it's having no clear endpoint. Society programs us to believe financial success is linear and endless. Social media amplifies this by showcasing others' highlights while hiding their struggles. A friend might post vacation photos funded by credit card debt, creating pressure to match their lifestyle through additional work hours. The opportunity cost of endless accumulation extends beyond personal fulfillment. Families suffer when parents prioritize portfolio growth over presence. Health deteriorates from stress and delayed medical care. Friendships fade when work dominates social calendars. Breaking this cycle requires honest self-examination. What would your life look like with 20% less money but 30% more time? Many people discover their financial anxiety stems from undefined fears rather than realistic planning. When you calculate actual needs versus wants, the gap between enough and more becomes stark. The goal isn't to stop planning or become financially reckless. Instead, it's recognizing when additional wealth provides diminishing returns on life satisfaction, allowing you to redirect energy toward experiences that create lasting fulfillment before time runs out. Part 2. Defining a deliberate net worth peak. Most wealthy people die with millions they never enjoyed because they never decided when to stop accumulating wealth and start living fully. The idea of choosing your own net worth peak sounds radical in a culture obsessed with endless growth. Yet this decision represents one of the most liberating choices you can make. Warren Buffett understood this principle when he committed to giving away 99% of his wealth. He recognized that beyond a certain point, additional money couldn't improve his daily life or happiness. Your peak isn't about stopping all financial planning. It's about identifying the specific dollar amount that provides complete security for your desired lifestyle, covers reasonable emergencies, and handles any legacy goals. After reaching this number, every additional dollar saved becomes a missed opportunity for meaningful experiences. Consider tech entrepreneur Reid Hoffman, who stepped back from active wealth building to focus on philanthropy and teaching. He reached his peak and shifted energy toward impact rather than accumulation. This transition required honest assessment of what he actually needed versus what society suggested he should want. Calculating your peak starts with 3 clear inputs. First, determine your ideal annual spending for the lifestyle you genuinely want, not what others expect. Second, multiply this by your remaining life expectancy to get total future needs. Third, add buffers for healthcare, market volatility, and legacy wishes. The result becomes your target peak. This approach transforms financial planning from endless anxiety into intentional design. Instead of constantly asking how much more, you start asking how should I use this surplus? The shift changes everything. Excess savings beyond your peak become tools for creating memories, strengthening relationships, and pursuing passions while you're healthy enough to enjoy them. Many people resist setting a peak because it feels like limiting their potential. But unlimited accumulation often limits life itself. When Bill Perkins sold his energy trading business, he could have continued building wealth indefinitely. Instead, he chose to focus on experiences, relationships, and sharing knowledge through writing and speaking. Your peak should feel both ambitious and achievable. Set it too low, and you'll face genuine financial stress. Set it too high, and you'll work unnecessarily long or save compulsively. The sweet spot provides complete peace of mind about money, while freeing mental and emotional energy for what matters most. Once you define your peak, every financial decision becomes clearer. Should you work that extra year? Only if you haven't reached your number. Should you take that expensive trip? Absolutely, if you've exceeded your peak. Should you upgrade your lifestyle? The math tells you exactly when and how much. This framework doesn't eliminate financial responsibility. It redirects it toward conscious choices rather than autopilot accumulation, ensuring your money serves your life instead of dominating it. Part 3. Translating extra savings into wasted time. Think about every year you work beyond your actual needs. Those are months stolen from your future self. Most people never do this calculation, but the math is sobering. When Warren Buffett dies with $100 billion instead of $95 billion, those extra billions represent decades of work that produced no additional happiness or security. The same principle applies to anyone who accumulates far beyond their needs. Let's make this personal. Suppose you earn $80,000 annually and plan to die with $500,000 in your account. That leftover money represents over 6 years of work. 6 years of Monday mornings, office politics, and delayed vacations that bought you absolutely nothing. Your heirs might benefit, but you traded irreplaceable time for money you never used. The calculation becomes starker when you consider compound interest. If you saved an extra $20,000 per year for the last 5 years of your career, that money might grow to $200,000 by the time you die. But working those 5 extra years meant missing 5 years of retirement freedom, 5 years of sleeping in, 5 years of pursuing passions instead of deadlines. Sarah Chen, a software engineer from Seattle, realized this at 55 when she calculated her projected net worth at death. Her spreadsheets showed she'd leave behind $2.3 million, despite needing only $1.8 million for a comfortable retirement. That extra $500,000 represented 3 additional years in a job that increasingly drained her energy. She quit the following month and spent those 3 years learning photography in Vietnam, renovating an old farmhouse, and teaching her grandchildren to code. The exercise isn't about spending recklessly. It's about recognizing the opportunity cost of excessive saving. Every dollar you accumulate beyond your genuine needs represents time you could have spent creating memories, building relationships, or pursuing meaningful work on your own terms. Most financial advisors won't tell you this because their business model depends on managing ever larger portfolios. But your goal isn't to maximize wealth. It's to optimize life satisfaction while maintaining reasonable security. Consider tracking your time cost alongside your savings rate. When you put an extra $1,000 in your retirement account, calculate how many hours you work to earn that money. Then ask yourself, would those hours have been better spent on a weekend trip with your kids, a cooking class with your spouse, or simply reading in a hammock? The answer depends on your current financial position. If you're behind on retirement savings, those extra hours of work create genuine value. But if you're on track to die wealthy, you're essentially choosing future money over present experiences. This reframing transforms how you view overtime, side hustles, and career advancement. Instead of automatically saying yes to more income, you can consciously choose between additional security and additional life. Part 4. Aligning goals, fears, and financial plans. Most people save money to solve problems that exist only in their imagination, creating real problems in their actual lives. Warren Buffett once said he could live comfortably on $100,000 a year, yet he's worth over $100 billion. This disconnect between needs and accumulation isn't unique to billionaires. A 2019 study by Northwestern Mutual found that Americans believe they need $1.9 million to retire comfortably. But most can't articulate why that specific number matters or what lifestyle it would actually fund. The root of oversaving often lies in fear dressed up as prudence. Take Sarah, a software engineer who saved 70% of her income for 15 years because she worried about healthcare costs, market crashes, and inflation simultaneously. When pressed to quantify these fears, she realized her worst-case scenario required about $2 million in savings. She had $4.8 million and was still skipping family vacations to save more. Fear multiplies when it remains abstract. Write down your specific worries about money. Not what if something happens, but what if I need long-term care for 5 years at $8,000 monthly? Calculate the actual cost. Research the probability. Most financial fears shrink dramatically when exposed to daylight and math. Social comparison creates another distortion. Your neighbor's financial decisions reflect their values, risk tolerance, and circumstances, not yours. A surgeon saving $300,000 annually might rationally accumulate wealth differently than a teacher saving $15,000. Yet both often benchmark against people in completely different situations, leading to either inadequate or excessive saving relative to their personal needs. The solution starts with defining what money should accomplish in your life. Freedom from work? Supporting grandchildren's education? Travel before mobility declines? Security against specific risks? Write these down, then calculate what each goal actually costs, not what it feels like it should cost. Consider the Peterson family, who wanted financial security but couldn't define it. After listing specific concerns, job loss protection for 2 years, healthcare emergencies, and maintaining their current lifestyle in retirement, they discovered they needed $1.2 million total. They had been saving toward an undefined target that kept growing with their income, reaching $2.8 million while still feeling not ready to spend on experiences. Effective financial planning works backward from your desired life, not forward from maximum possible savings. Define your enough, protect against your actual fears, and stop letting vague anxieties steal your present. Chapter 6: Decumulation as a Life Strategy. Part 1: Reframing spending down as rational. Most financial experts tell you to save relentlessly and spend cautiously. But what if they're selling you a half-truth that wastes your most precious resource? Warren Buffett, despite his legendary investment skills, faced criticism for accumulating over $100 billion while living relatively modestly until his later years. His eventual commitment to give away 99% of his wealth reveals an important insight. Even the world's greatest wealth builder recognized that endless accumulation serves no meaningful purpose. The money sitting in your retirement account right now isn't growing for its own sake. It's supposed to fuel something better. Think of your savings like stored energy in a battery. A battery that never powers anything useful has failed its fundamental purpose, regardless of how much charge it holds. Your accumulated wealth represents decades of stored life energy, hours worked, opportunities deferred, and immediate pleasures postponed. When you refuse to spend down this energy during your healthy, active years, you're essentially letting the battery discharge unused. Consider the case of tech entrepreneur Reid Hoffman, who began strategic philanthropy and experience-focused spending well before retirement age. Rather than waiting until his 80s to deploy his wealth, he recognized that his 40s and 50s offered optimal conditions for both enjoying resources and making meaningful contributions. This approach treats spending down as a sophisticated strategy, not financial recklessness. The traditional retirement model assumes you'll suddenly transform from a saver to a spender at age 65. But behavioral economics research shows this transition rarely happens smoothly. Dr. Shlomo Ben-Artzi's studies reveal that people who spend their careers accumulating wealth often struggle psychologically to reverse course, even when financially secure. They've trained themselves so thoroughly to save that spending feels wrong, regardless of their account balances. Smart decumulation requires recognizing that your net worth peak should be intentional, not accidental. Once you've reached your chosen financial summit, whether that's $500,000 or $5 million, continued accumulation often represents misallocated life energy. You're working and saving out of habit rather than purpose. The most successful decumulators reframe withdrawals as victories, not defeats. Each dollar spent on meaningful experiences or generous contributions proves that their accumulation phase succeeded. They view their declining net worth chart not as failure, but as evidence that stored life energy is finally being converted into actual living. This mindset shift transforms spending from the source of anxiety into a source of satisfaction, proving that your money is finally doing what you always intended it to do. Part 2: Avoiding the Trap of Dying Too Rich. Most Americans die with more money than they ever expected to accumulate, leaving behind substantial assets that never enhanced their actual living experience. Warren Buffett's longtime business partner, Charlie Munger, accumulated billions, yet lived in the same modest Pasadena home for decades, eating at the same local restaurants and driving practical cars. While admirable in its simplicity, this pattern raises a challenging question. When does prudent saving become counterproductive hoarding? financial advisors traditionally push clients toward accumulation without discussing the exit strategy. The standard 4% rule assumes you'll live forever, encouraging people to preserve principal indefinitely. This approach creates what researchers call the spending paradox. The wealthier people become, the more terrified they grow of spending money. A 2019 study by United Income found that 80% of retirees spend less each year than their portfolios could safely support, effectively working longer and saving more than necessary. Consider the story of Harold, a Boeing engineer who saved diligently for 40 years, accumulating $3.2 million by retirement. Despite having enough money to travel extensively and help his grandchildren with college, he continued clipping coupons and driving a 15-year-old Honda. Harold died at 78 with $4.1 million, having spent his final years worrying about market volatility rather than enjoying his accumulated security. His children inherited money they didn't need, while Harold missed opportunities to create meaningful experiences with family. The mathematics of oversaving reveal a harsh truth. Every dollar left unspent represents hours of your life that were traded for money but never converted back into living. If you earned $50 per hour and die with $200,000 you didn't need, you essentially worked 4,000 unnecessary hours, equivalent to 2 full years of employment. This doesn't advocate reckless spending, but rather intentional allocation. Jeff Bezos spends $1 billion annually on his space company Blue Origin, not because he's wasteful, but because he's converting stored wealth into meaningful pursuits while alive. The goal isn't dying broke, but dying having fully utilized the resources you accumulated for their intended purpose, enhancing your experience of being human. Recognizing the signs of oversaving helps correct course before it's too late. If you find yourself checking investment balances daily while avoiding purchases that would genuinely improve your life, you've likely crossed from prudence into counterproductive accumulation. Part 3. Tools for planning a spend-down path. Most people approach retirement planning with the precision of a weather forecast. Yet when it comes to spending their savings, they wing it completely. The same meticulous planning that built your wealth deserves equal attention when you begin using it. Start with life expectancy calculations, but add 10 years to whatever the actuarial tables suggest. Social Security's mortality data shows the average 65-year-old will live to 84, but planning for 94 gives you breathing room. Warren Buffett, now 93, demonstrates why conservative longevity estimates matter. This cushion prevents the nightmare scenario of running out of money while still allowing meaningful spending in your healthier decades. Spending scenarios require modeling different paths. Create 3 versions: conservative, moderate, and aggressive drawdown rates. The conservative plan might withdraw 3% annually, moderate takes 4%, and aggressive reaches 5 to 6%. Run these numbers against your expected lifespan. Most financial advisors recommend starting conservative, then adjusting upward as you age and your remaining years become clearer. Guaranteed income products deserve serious consideration despite their complexity. Immediate annuities purchased at 70 can provide pension-like security, covering basic expenses while freeing other assets for discretionary spending. Vanguard's research shows that even small annuity allocations can increase overall spending confidence by 20 to 30%. The psychological benefit often outweighs the mathematical inefficiency. Technology makes this planning accessible. Monte Carlo simulations, available through platforms like Portfolio Visualizer or New Retirement, test thousands of market scenarios against your spending plan. These tools reveal which withdrawal rates survive various economic storms, helping calibrate realistic expectations. The key insight involves separating needs from wants in your planning. Calculate the minimum required for housing, healthcare, and basic living expenses. Once you've secured this foundation through Social Security, pensions, or annuities, everything above becomes available for experiences and relationships. This structured approach transforms spending from guesswork into strategy. When David Harbour, former CEO of SeaChange International, retired at 62, He used detailed projections to justify increased travel spending. His model showed that waiting until 75 would leave him too old to enjoy adventure travel, so he front-loaded those experiences. Regular plan updates remain essential as health, market conditions, and personal priorities shift. Review annually, adjusting both spending rates and allocations based on actual versus projected outcomes. The goal involves creating enough confidence in your financial security that you can focus on living fully rather than constantly checking account balances. Part 4. Balancing security with enjoyment. Most people worry about running out of money, but what if the bigger risk is running out of life while your money sits idle? The challenge becomes finding that sweet spot between prudent caution and paralyzing fear. Consider how Warren Buffett, worth over $100 billion, still lives in the same modest Omaha home he bought in 1958. While admirable in some ways, this extreme frugality raises questions about whether he's experiencing diminishing returns on additional security. Your brain naturally amplifies scary scenarios. The possibility of needing expensive long-term care looms large, while the certainty of missing today's opportunities barely registers. Behavioral economists call this probability neglect. We focus intensely on dramatic but unlikely events while ignoring gradual guaranteed losses. Every year you delay that European trip or postpone helping your children is a year of experience permanently lost. The solution involves establishing concrete safety boundaries rather than vague feelings of enough. Take Susan Walsh, a retired teacher from Portland, who calculated she needed $4,000 monthly for basic expenses plus a $50,000 emergency fund. Once those numbers were clear, she committed to spending everything above that threshold on travel and family experiences. Her approach eliminated endless second-guessing about whether each purchase was safe. Setting these thresholds requires honest math, not wishful thinking. Calculate your true minimum monthly needs for housing, food, healthcare, and utilities. Add a realistic emergency buffer for unexpected costs. Then commit to treating everything above this floor as fair game for enjoyment spending. The key insight? Perfect security doesn't exist anyway. Market crashes, health crises, and policy changes can erode even massive savings. Meanwhile, the experiences you skip while pursuing impossible certainty represent guaranteed losses. A 70-year-old who postpones adventure travel until they feel completely secure has already lost the physical capacity for many experiences, regardless of their account balance. Think of your safety threshold like a life preserver. You need enough to stay afloat, but carrying 10 life preservers just makes swimming harder. Once you've established adequate protection, additional accumulation often creates more problems than it solves. The goal becomes converting excess financial security into immediate life security, the confidence to fully engage with the present moment. Chapter 7. Giving While It Matters Most. Part 1. Rethinking Traditional Inheritance. Your 60-year-old son probably doesn't need your money as much as your 25-year-old grandson does. Yet most inheritance plans completely ignore this reality. Consider Warren Buffett's approach. The world's most famous investor has publicly stated he plans to give away 99% of his wealth during his lifetime, or shortly after death, leaving his children enough to do anything but not enough to do nothing. His logic is simple. Massive inheritances often arrive when recipients are already established in their careers and past their most transformative life stages. Think about when people actually need financial support most. A 25-year-old weighing graduate school versus entering the workforce faces a completely different situation than a 55-year-old with an established career and retirement savings. That young person might benefit enormously from $20,000 to pursue education or take an entrepreneurial risk. The same amount barely registers for someone already financially secure. The traditional inheritance model operates like a slow-cooking timer set for decades. By the time the meal is ready, everyone has either left the kitchen or already eaten. Chuck Feeney, co-founder of Duty Free Shoppers, understood this timing mismatch perfectly. He secretly gave away his entire fortune while alive through his foundation, preferring to see the impact of his generosity rather than delegate that satisfaction to future estate executors. Research from Boston College's Center on Wealth and Philanthropy reveals that the average inheritance recipient is 56 years old when they receive their windfall. At this age, most people have already made their major life decisions about education, career paths, and family formation. The transformative power of money diminishes significantly when basic life structure is already established. Smart families are shifting toward strategic gifting during peak opportunity windows. When Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg's sister Randy needed startup capital for her social media company, family support at the right moment proved far more valuable than waiting for a traditional inheritance decades later. This doesn't mean abandoning all inheritance planning. Instead, it suggests viewing wealth transfer as an active process rather than a posthumous event. The goal shifts from maximizing the dollar amount left behind to maximizing the positive impact created throughout multiple generations. Sometimes that means giving less money later and more support when it can genuinely change someone's trajectory. The most profound inheritances often aren't financial at all. They're opportunities, connections, experiences, and wisdom shared, while relationships can still deepen through the giving process. Part 2. The power of early gifts to children. Sometimes the smallest nudge at the right moment creates more impact than any massive inheritance later. When Jeff Bezos decided to start Amazon in 1994, he had an idea but needed capital to leave his stable Wall Street job. His parents, Jackie and Mike Bezos, loaned him $300,000 from their retirement savings. This wasn't their full net worth handed over in a will decades later. It was strategic support at a pivotal moment when their son faced a career-defining choice. That early gift enabled one of the most transformative companies in history. Most parents think about helping their children through traditional inheritance planning. They accumulate wealth throughout their lifetime, then leave substantial sums when their children are already in their 50s or 60s. By that time, many recipients have already made their major life decisions about education, career paths, relationships, and risk-taking. The money arrives when paths are already set. Consider instead the compounding effect of well-timed early gifts. A $50,000 contribution toward a child's education eliminates decades of student loan payments. That same amount given to help with a first home purchase creates stability during prime earning years. When 28-year-old Sarah Chen received $40,000 from her grandmother to complete her master's degree in renewable energy, she avoided $60,000 in additional loans. More importantly, she graduated debt-free and could accept an innovative but lower-paying position at a clean energy startup. That choice, enabled by her grandmother's early gift, positioned her for eventual leadership in a growing industry. The key lies in timing and purpose. Early gifts work best when they remove barriers or create opportunities that shape long-term trajectories. A young couple struggling with childcare costs while building careers benefits more from immediate support than from knowing they'll inherit money at age 60. An entrepreneur with a promising idea but limited credit history can transform a modest gift into significant wealth creation. Warren Buffett's children receive substantial educational opportunities and seed funding for their passions early in life, rather than waiting for his eventual estate distribution. His son Howard used early support to develop farming expertise that later informed his foundation work. His daughter Susan received backing for her music career and nonprofit initiatives while she could actively pursue them. Smart early giving requires honest conversations about values, expectations, and boundaries. The gift should enhance opportunity without creating dependency. It should respect the recipient's autonomy while providing meaningful leverage at crucial decision points. Sometimes that means funding education, sometimes supporting calculated risks, and sometimes simply providing peace of mind during vulnerable transitions. The goal isn't to solve all problems or guarantee success. It's to position young adults to make choices based on potential rather than fear, passion rather than pure financial necessity. Part 3. Living philanthropy instead of posthumous charity. Picture yourself dying with millions still sitting in the bank, while charities you cared about struggled for years without your help. Warren Buffett made headlines when he pledged to give away 99% of his wealth, but here's what caught less attention. He started serious charitable giving in his 60s, not at his death. The Oracle of Omaha discovered that watching his money work for causes created more satisfaction than simply writing it into his will. He could see schools built, medical research funded, and poverty programs launched. Each donation taught him what worked and what didn't. Living philanthropy transforms giving from a one-time transaction into an ongoing relationship. When you donate while alive, you become a participant rather than a distant benefactor. You can visit the school your money helped build. You can meet the students who receive scholarships. You can adjust your approach based on what you learn. Mark Benioff, Salesforce's founder, committed to giving away his fortune gradually rather than posthumously. He started with education initiatives in San Francisco, learned from early mistakes, and refined his approach. His living donations allowed him to pivot when programs underperformed and double down when they succeeded. Dead philanthropists can't course correct. Consider the practical advantages. Your accountant can help structure donations for maximum tax benefits while you're alive to claim them. You can spread large gifts across multiple years to optimize deductions. Estate taxes might claim 40% of posthumous charitable bequests, but strategic lifetime giving often preserves more money for actual causes. The emotional rewards surprise many donors. Melinda French Gates described the deep fulfillment of working directly with organizations she supported, learning about complex problems firsthand, rather than assuming her money would automatically solve them. Living philanthropy connects you to purpose in ways that posthumous giving simply cannot match. Start with causes that genuinely excite you, rather than those that seem respectable. Test smaller amounts first, visit organizations, ask tough questions about impact measurement, build relationships with people doing the work. Your giving can evolve as you learn what creates real change versus what merely feels good. This approach doesn't require massive wealth. A retired teacher who volunteers at literacy programs and donates regularly experiences the same participatory satisfaction as a billionaire funding universities. The scale differs, but the principle remains identical, engaging with your generosity while you can witness and guide its impact. Part 4. Designing a legacy you can witness. Most people think about legacy the same way they think about death, something that happens after they're gone. But Warren Buffett started giving away his fortune at 76, specifically because he wanted to see his money work while he could still guide it. Legacy becomes exponentially more powerful when you treat it as a collaborative project with the living. Instead of hoping your posthumous donations will create change, you can actively participate in shaping that change. This means having conversations with your children about what support would genuinely help them thrive. It means working alongside organizations to understand their real challenges, not just writing checks based on their marketing materials. Consider how differently this plays out in practice. When Charles Feeney, founder of Duty Free Shoppers, decided to give away his $8 billion fortune while alive, he didn't just write checks. He spent decades learning about education systems, healthcare challenges, and social issues. His Atlantic Philanthropies closed in 2020 because Feeney wanted to see every dollar deployed effectively during his lifetime. He witnessed students graduate from universities his money helped build. He saw research centers produce breakthrough discoveries. He experienced the satisfaction of problems actually getting solved. This approach works at every financial level. A grandmother teaching her grandchildren about money management creates a more lasting impact than leaving them cash they might spend carelessly. A middle-class couple volunteering together at local nonprofits while making modest donations builds deeper community connections than any posthumous bequest could achieve. The key lies in designing your legacy intentionally rather than defaulting to traditional approaches. What specific changes do you want to see in the world? Which family stories do you want to help write? Start creating those outcomes now, while you can adjust course based on what actually works. This requires honest conversations about impact versus intention. Your family might need different support than you assume. Your favorite charity might use money less effectively than you hoped. When you give while alive, you can course correct. You can ask questions. You can celebrate successes and learn from failures. The most profound satisfaction comes from witnessing transformation you helped create. Whether it's seeing your child pursue a dream career because you supported their education at the right moment, or watching a community program flourish because you provided both funding and expertise, living legacy creates meaning that posthumous giving simply cannot match. Chapter 8. Choosing Boldness over Autopilot. Part 1. Recognizing financial autopilot in your life. The scariest part about financial autopilot isn't that you'll run out of money. It's that you'll never realize you're sleepwalking through your one life. David Brooks, the New York Times columnist, worked 14-hour days for decades, saving religiously and postponing vacations. When his marriage ended and his kids left home, he suddenly found himself wealthy but emotionally empty. He had been following a script written in his 20s that made no sense at 55. His bank account was full, but his life felt hollow. This happens to millions of people. You start saving for retirement at 25 because that's what responsible adults do. You keep working longer hours because that's how you get promoted. You postpone the trip to Italy because you should max out your 401k first. These choices make sense initially, but many people never stop to ask whether they still make sense now. Financial autopilot operates through three powerful forces. First, your brain loves routines. Once you establish a savings rate or work schedule, your mind treats it as permanent truth rather than a temporary choice. Second, society constantly reinforces the message that more money equals more security, regardless of how much you already have. Third, your peer group probably lives the same way, making alternative choices feel risky or weird. Take Sarah, a software engineer who earned $200,000 annually, but still packed lunch every day and drove a 15-year-old Honda. She had $800,000 saved by age 35, but had never taken a vacation longer than 4 days. When her father died suddenly, she realized she was optimizing for a future that might never come, while missing the present entirely. The most dangerous part of autopilot is how reasonable it feels. Every choice seems logical in isolation. Working extra hours brings more money. Saving more creates more security. But these individual decisions can add up to a life strategy that stopped serving you years ago. Smart people often struggle most with this because they're good at creating systems and sticking to them. They build efficient financial machines that keep running long after the original goals have been achieved. A doctor continues working 70-hour weeks at 60 because that's how she built her practice, even though she has enough money to retire comfortably. Breaking autopilot requires regular life audits. Every year, ask yourself, if I died today, what would I regret not doing? What am I saving for that matters more than experiences I could have now? Am I working toward goals I actually want or goals I think I should want? The goal isn't to spend recklessly. When you're making deliberate choices about money based on your current priorities rather than ancient habits, you're finally living instead of just existing. Part 2. Understanding and right-sizing fear of risk. Most people think the worst thing that could happen is financial loss, but Bill Perkins discovered something far more costly. Your brain treats every risk like a saber-toothed tiger. When you consider taking a sabbatical at 35, quitting a stable job to start a business, or spending $30,000 on a year-long family adventure, your nervous system activates the same alarm bells our ancestors felt facing genuine threats to survival. The problem is that modern risks rarely threaten your actual survival, yet your body responds as if they do. Consider Reid Hoffman, who left a comfortable consulting job to join the risky startup world in the 1990s. His worst-case scenario wasn't death or homelessness. It was moving back in with his parents for 6 months while finding another job. That temporary embarrassment led to founding LinkedIn. Most catastrophic career risks follow this pattern. You might face a few months of financial strain or wounded pride, but you'll likely recover completely within a year or two. The math of regret works differently than financial math. Money lost can often be earned back, especially when you're younger. Time lost to fear never returns. A study by Bronnie Ware, who worked with dying patients, found that the top regret wasn't about risks taken, but about chances not pursued. People didn't wish they'd been more careful with money. They wished they'd been braver with their lives. Your risk tolerance should actually increase with youth, not decrease. At 25, you have decades to recover from financial setbacks. At 65, you have fewer years to recover, but also fewer years to enjoy bold experiences. Yet most people live backwards, playing it safe when they're young, and suddenly wanting adventure when their bodies and energy levels make it harder. Try this exercise. Write down your biggest fear about a bold move you're considering. Now research 3 people who faced that exact scenario. How did their stories actually end? Rachel Roy left her fashion job without a backup plan at 28. She struggled for 18 months, then built a multi-million-dollar brand. The gap between imagined catastrophe and actual outcomes is usually enormous. Smart risk-taking means examining your fears under bright lights. Most dissolve when you realize they're temporary inconveniences masquerading as permanent disasters. Part 3. Creating structures that nudge bold choices. Your brain will resist bold moves, but simple structures can overpower that resistance every time. The trick isn't finding more willpower, it's removing the friction that makes courage feel impossible. Jeff Bezos famously used his regret minimization framework before leaving Wall Street to start Amazon. At 30, he imagined himself at 80 and asked which path would create fewer regrets. This single question structure guided one of history's most consequential career changes. The framework worked because it bypassed his immediate fears and focused on long-term consequences. You need similar guardrails against your own hesitation. Start with a mortality countdown. Calculate your remaining healthy years, not to be morbid, but to create urgency. If you're 40 with roughly 35 good years left, that's only 420 months. Write that number somewhere visible. Mark Benioff, CEO of Salesforce, keeps a countdown of his remaining summers on his desk. Each passing month becomes real instead of abstract. Create expiration dates for your dreams. Warren Buffett's friend had always wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro someday. At 65, his doctor told him his knees had 3 good hiking years left. He booked the trip that week. Physical adventures, intensive learning, energy-demanding projects, these all have biological deadlines whether we acknowledge them or not. Public commitments eliminate escape routes. When Cheryl Strayed announced her Pacific Crest Trail hike in Wild, backing out became socially impossible. Social pressure that usually keeps us safe can also push us toward growth. Tell 5 people about your sabbatical, creative project, or career change. Their expectations become your accountability. Pre-booking removes decision fatigue. Book the flight before you feel ready. Sign the lease on the studio space. Pay for the course. Oprah Winfrey books her vacations a year in advance, treating them as non-negotiable appointments with herself. When the time comes, inertia works for you instead of against you. Set up automatic triggers. Every birthday, ask yourself what you'd regret not trying this year. Every tax season, calculate how much you could afford to lose pursuing something meaningful. These regular check-ins prevent years from slipping by in autopilot mode. The most successful bold moves happen when the structure makes staying put harder than moving forward. Design your environment so courage becomes the path of least resistance. Part 4. Living each year as a non-renewable unit. Most people drift through decades without noticing each year slip away, treating time like an endless credit line. Think of your life as exactly 75 individual years instead of one long blur. Sarah, a marketing director in Dallas, started this practice at age 35. Every January, she sits down with her calendar and asks, what would make this year feel complete? In year 36, she took that pottery class she'd mentioned for 5 years. Year 37 brought the solo trip to Iceland. Year 38 was about deepening friendships through monthly dinner parties. This approach changes everything about money decisions. When you see time as 75 separate units, spending $3,000 on a family reunion suddenly makes sense. You realize you might only have 15 more years while your parents are healthy enough to travel. The expensive photography workshop becomes obvious when you count just 20 remaining years before retirement. Warren Buffett understands this principle differently. At 93, he's accumulated massive wealth, but admits he should have spent more on experiences when younger. His energy for adventure has naturally declined, yet his bank account keeps growing. This mismatch between peak wealth and peak capacity haunts many high achievers. Consider your current age and health honestly. A 45-year-old has roughly 30 prime years left for physical adventures. A 60-year-old might have 15 good years for extensive travel. These aren't morbid calculations, but practical planning tools. Each December, review what happened. Did this year feel intentional or accidental? Did you use your money to support what mattered most? Writer Annie Dillard observed that how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. The same applies to years. Your 42nd year will never return. Neither will your 55th or your 68th. Each carries unique opportunities based on your energy, relationships, and circumstances. A missed conversation with your grandfather can't be recovered. The startup idea you postpone might lose relevance. Start treating this upcoming year like the limited time offer it actually is. What experiences would make it feel worthwhile? What relationships deserve deeper investment? What dreams have reasonable expiration dates? Then spend accordingly, because this specific year of your life is already disappearing.